Thank you for joining us here on the CBN News Channel. I'm Ephraim Graham.
And I'm Charlene Israel. Great Britain and supporters around the world have been celebrating the arrival of the royal baby. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge welcomed their new son Monday afternoon. Today, the world waits for the latest news of the future king.
We welcome with humble duty a future king.
The royal baby has arrived. A healthy baby boy weighing in at 8 pounds 6 ounces.
It's a wonderful moment for a warm and loving couple who got a brand new baby boy.
Keeping with tradition, the baby announcement was posted on an easel outside Buckingham Palace. But in a sign of the new century the royal baby has been born into, the announcement was made to the world first through an email to the press and social media networks like Twitter. In a brief statement, Prince William said he and Kate couldn't be happier. Celebrations erupted immediately. Famous London landmarks announced the news and fountains turned blue, as did Niagara Falls.
I just got in time to burst my bubbles and raise a toast to the new prince.
British papers reflected the national mood, this one announcing the regal has landed, and the Sun temporarily changing the spelling of their title in honor of the new prince. Today, the new family reenacts the scene from 31 years ago when Prince William himself was presented to the world. Meanwhile, English bookies have been betting on the baby's name for months, but now they say there's something new to bet on.
People are betting on everything. I think our most interesting market at the moment is the baby's first word. You can get Dada or Mama, they're the favorites, but Your Majesty at 50 to 1 might be worth a pound.
William and Kate will bring their newborn son home to Kensington Palace, and later this week he will meet his great-grandmother, the Queen. The baby is the third in line to the throne. President Obama joined other world leaders in welcoming the birth of the royal baby. In a written statement, he said, quote, "We wish them all the happiness and blessings parenthood brings."
A key national security debate kicking off in Congress today. The House begins work on a $600 billion defense spending bill. Two sticking points are limits to secret surveillance programs and the push to support Syrian rebels. Tea Party conservatives and liberal Democrats have joined forces in an unusual coalition. They're insisting on changes to the way the National Security Agency collects phone records of millions of Americans. They've also joined forces together for amendments barring the White House from arming the Syrian rebels without congressional approval.
Senator Ted Cruz says Christians need to do a better job of explaining why support for Israel helps protect the United States. For example, Cruz says if the United States won't stop Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, Israel will. That's what he told thousands of supporters rallying at the Christians United for Israel summit in Washington. Just last week, Cruz spoke at a private pastors' conference in Iowa. That trip to the early voting state has fueled speculation that Cruz may be interested in running for president. His father, Raphael, was on hand at the event, and the pastors there prayed for both him and his son. Raphael Cruz has been a traveling preacher for decades. Afterwards, CBN's David Brody talked to the elder Cruz about his son.
When he was 4, I used to read Bible stories to him all the time, and I would declare and proclaim the word of God of him. And I would just say, you know, Ted, you have been gifted above any man that I know, and God has destined you for greatness. And I started making declarations about the word of God to him every day.
Next week, David will have more from the pastors' conference, including interviews with Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, plus an in-depth look at the need for spiritual revival in America.
Secretary of State John Kerry says Israel and the Palestinians will start talking again soon. They'll discuss a possible Palestinian state and the key question of whether or not Jerusalem should be divided. John Wagi has that story.
It's been 5 years since Israel and the Palestinians held official negotiations. Now a new Secretary of State wants to bring the two sides back together.
The representatives of two proud people today have decided that the difficult road ahead is worth traveling.
It's unclear how John Kerry pulled off the deal or what is in the details.
Maybe there has been certain American promises made to the Palestinians. It could be financial, it could be political, diplomatic, and possibly there was pressure levied at Israel.
The bigger challenge, problems before any talking begins. the Palestinians aren't exactly united. Hamas, the terrorist organization controlling the Gaza Strip, rejected the talks outright, and Palestinian Authority officials in Ramallah say it's not yet a done deal. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also has conditions. He hopes to prevent a one-state solution that would include making millions of Palestinians Israeli citizens and prevent the establishment of another Iran-sponsored terror state. He also plans to let Israelis vote on any final deal. Both sides are skeptical.
Abu Mazen seems so reluctant to resume the negotiation and so reluctant or maybe unwilling to make the necessary concessions on the Palestinian side.
The pressure from the Americans is mainly on the Palestinians to accept American mediation and to accept Israeli conditions.
The Palestinians demand Israel stop building in biblical Judea and Samaria and release more than 80 convicted Palestinian terrorists before the talks even start. It's also clear that dividing Jerusalem will be on their agenda, a deal breaker for Israel.
During the last 100 years of the Israeli-Arab conflict, which precedes Israel's establishment, there has been ample evidence that the conflict has been over the existence rather than the size of Israel.
Israeli diplomat Yoram Ettinger says the U.S. hasn't learned from past mistakes.
The other issue, which is mind-boggling, is for the U.S. to be preoccupied right now with the Palestinian issue while the Middle East is burning.
According to Kerry, the talks could begin in Washington this week, but how long they'll last and where they'll lead remains to be seen. John Waggy, CBN News.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked a new North Dakota law that bans abortion when a fetal heartbeat is detected. The measure would outlaw abortions as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy and before some women know they are pregnant. U.S. District Judge Daniel Hovland granted that injunction Monday. It prevents the law from taking effect August 1st. He called the law clearly invalid and unconstitutional.
A large majority of Americans support religious freedom when it conflicts with gay rights. A new survey shows 85% believe a Christian wedding photographer has the right to refuse to work at a gay wedding if it violates his or her religious beliefs. Only 8% disagreed. Rasmussen Reports put the question to 1,000 people in a telephone survey.
Kirk Cameron says his latest movie, Unstoppable, can't be stopped. The 42-year-old Growing Pains star told his fans that Facebook and YouTube had blocked his movie trailer, calling it abusive, unsafe, and spammy. More than 250,000 people reposted Cameron's comments, and Facebook and YouTube have now put the movie trailer back up. The movie focuses on why God allows bad things to happen to good people. You can find a link to the trailer and more details on the movie at cbnnews.com.
Coming up, the Pope visits Brazil. How his trip highlights the conflict between Catholics and the growing evangelical church there.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes now.
Thousands lined the streets of Rio de Janeiro Monday, welcoming Pope Francis to Brazil for World Youth Day. It's the Pope's first international trip since taking over earlier this year, and it started with some nervous excitement. On the way from the airport, the driver got lost, turning off a highway that had been cleared of traffic onto a busy street. Crowds of people rushed the car, trying to get a glimpse or even a blessing from the Holy Father. The incident gave his security detail a few anxious moments, but Pope Francis reportedly loved it.
And joining us now is our Latin America Bureau Chief Stan Jeter. Stan, Brazil has the fastest growing evangelical population of any Latin American nation. Tell us about the growth that's taking place there.
The growth of the Brazilian church is absolutely phenomenal. It's a phenomenon that's taken place over the last 30 years or so, where they've grown from practically nothing to somewhere between 20 and 30% of the population of Brazil, which is a large country. And they do amazing things. They have their own radio and television networks. They have a March for Jesus every year in Sao Paulo that gathers between 1 and 2 million people. They are thriving, and they're reaching out to the poor. I think that's one of the key things.
Wow, it's a beautiful story to tell. What's drawing people to the evangelical church?
Well, like I said, they're reaching out to the poor. They go into the favelas, the slums. They minister there. They plant churches there. I've heard of many cases of the church growing in very difficult areas and thriving in very difficult areas. They have a worship style that's happy and loud, and they love it. It's more people-friendly. They're doing a lot of things right. And of course, the gospel message, which changes lives, is very clearly preached.
Well, of course, you think Latin America, you think Catholic. How does this affect the Catholic Church? Is there a conflict between the two?
Well, the Catholic Church has been losing adherents over the last 30 years or so. They have descended from almost 90% of the population to about 59%. So the Pope is facing a church that's in decline.
So then the question is, what does Pope Francis hope to accomplish on this trip to Brazil?
When the Pope left for Brazil, he had several things in mind, and he shared some of them, and one of them was definitely to challenge the youth and to invigorate the youth and make them a vibrant part of the Catholic Church in the days ahead. And he certainly has reached out to them. He wants to identify with them. Another thing he wants to do is to help close perhaps the enthusiasm gap between the evangelical church and the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is more sedate, and the evangelical church is more lively, and there's a lot more enthusiasm in the evangelical church. And so he's hoping to stir up enthusiasm to hold on some of the Catholics. You know that 70% of the people who leave the Catholic Church are becoming evangelicals. And so it's a huge loss for the Catholic Church. He hopes to reverse some of that trend over the long term.
Wow. Real quickly, is there any way for the churches to work together in any way? I mean, because they're both, of course, the mission is to spread the gospel.
In terms of social action, opposing areas of laws that they consider immoral or unhealthy, yes, they work together. And the Pope himself has reached out to evangelical leaders. He has a history of that. He's welcomed the prayer of evangelical leaders for him personally.
Indeed.
And so there's a bit of a friendship there that we haven't seen in previous popes. So there's a lot of hope that this could be a positive thing.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Stanji, as always, for your insight.
Welcome.
Up next, the shot heard around the Muslim world. But what if it was all a hoax?
Iran is criticizing the European Union's decision to label the military wing of Hezbollah as a terrorist group. Iran backs Hezbollah financially and with weapons and training. The Iranian government called the move strange and uncalculated. The White House applauded the EU's decision. Israel has called on the European Union to blacklist Hezbollah for years, but the EU has refused because Hezbollah is part of the Lebanese government. The EU softened its stance after Hezbollah was accused of carrying out a terrorist attack against Israeli tourists in Bulgaria last year.
The story on French TV was that Israeli soldiers shot and killed a boy in the Gaza Strip. Well, there was just one problem. It's almost certainly false.
That was back in 2000, and the battle over it and its resulting wave of violence isn't done yet. Dale Hurd brings us an update now from Paris.
In 2000, a Palestinian boy named Mohammed Al-Dura was allegedly killed by Israeli soldiers during a gun battle in the Gaza Strip. The incident was shown on the nightly news in France on the channel France 2.
Mohamed est mort.
The video by correspondent Charles Anderlin ignited rage across the Muslim world. It became a recruiting tool by Al-Qaeda, and it was used to justify the beheading of American journalist Daniel Pearl. But the video, shot by a Palestinian cameraman, has been dismissed by many journalists and experts as a fake. They say the Israelis could not have killed the boy as shown in the video. Any bullets fired by the Israelis could have only traveled like this. The 2 bullets seen hitting the wall in the France 2 video came from the Palestinian position. Further, the boy was supposedly hit with 3 high-velocity bullets and the father with 12. That should have done significant damage, but there was no blood on their bodies or on the wall behind them. And on the raw footage of the gun battle, we see the boy, after he's supposed to be dead, peeking out from under his arm. We also know that the Palestinians are famous for staging faked injuries and death in order to gain international sympathy. Here's a would-be actor pretending to be a victim of the Israelis. Philippe Carsanti, deputy mayor in the Paris suburb of Neuilly, says he, like the others, believed the Al-Dura video at first, and then saw the evidence that it was fake.
I went to the France 2 office, I went everywhere to ask them, but please correct the news. Nobody wanted to listen to me.
So Carsanti began a public campaign to spread the word that the video was a hoax, and he was sued by France 2 for defamation. A few weeks ago, after years of court battles, Carsanti finally lost. One of the first questions that needs to be asked, says an American author living in Paris, is why a TV network would sue a viewer simply for complaining that a story isn't true. Nidra Poller is writing a book about the Al-Dura affair.
In a democratic country, citizens watched a news report, saw that was visibly fake, which you can see today anytime you look at it, and they said it was a fake. You don't take people to court for that. And what they did was they took 3 people to court thinking that they had 3 small fries. They got fooled because Philippe Carsanti wasn't a small fry, and he fought back.
The Al-Dura affair would become much more than just about whether a boy's death was real or fake. Mohammed Al-Dura is now a religious and cultural icon in the Muslim world. His image adorns postage stamps. His name is on statues and buildings. He became another reason to hate and kill Jews.
The Al-Dura affair may have started as sloppy journalism, but Jews say it has become a modern-day blood libel, where Jews are falsely accused of killing children.
The image of the Israelis as a killer of children was really reinforced, strikingly, very strongly reinforced by this broadcast.
Richard Proskyr is the former head of France's National Council of Jews. In 6 years as leader, he was never once invited to speak about the controversy on French TV.
I'm French. I want to see in my country freedom of expression, possibility of expressing different views, and not to be blacklisted.
The Al-Dura affair is both about the French media's view of Israel as a bully in the Middle East and about how the French government and media tend to operate like an exclusive club where the members protect one another.
After Carsanti won the case on appeal, France's Supreme Court stepped in last year and threw out the decision.
It's kind of a mafia.
The French establishment decided long ago to circle the wagons and defend France 2 and the Al-Dura report. And whether the report was true or not seemed to become secondary.
Carsanti, he's right, but that's not the point.
Anne-Elisabeth Moutet is a French conservative and writes for the London Telegraph.
French civilization, as opposed to an Anglo-Saxon civilization, you do not apologize for a mistake because that is an admission of weakness. And it becomes a question of honor and it doesn't become a question of facts.
Does the system want to protect France too in this? And why is
that?
The
French are pro-establishment by nature.
So what really happened to Mohammed Al-Dura?
To be honest, nobody has found the 20-something boy on a beach in Gaza. And that would really change things.
The Israeli government and some forensic experts say he had to have been killed by Palestinian fire or some other way. France 2 correspondent Charles Onderlin told CBN News he still believes Mohammed Al-Dura was killed by Israeli fire. But he added, "I reject and condemn the way terrorists used my report." Having finally beaten Philippe Carsanti in court, the attorney for France 2 and reporter Charles Onderlin said specifically that the court punished an attack on her client's honor. So the French justice system has enshrined in a legal victory what some say amounts to a blood libel against Israel and the Jews, giving Muslims one more reason to kill Israelis and Americans. But France 2 and the French establishment still have their honor. Dale Hurd, CBN News, Paris.
It is a miraculous survival tale. An 18-wheeler smashes into a woman's car on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, sending it over the wall and into the water, 40 feet below.
And now she is speaking out about the accident and how God gave her the strength to stay alive.
A devastating car crash and a terrifying plunge. That's what happened to Morgan Lake the moment an 18-wheeler slammed into the back of her car on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Amazingly, she's now the one telling her story.
I saw my car explode with glass everywhere and airbags coming at me full force.
The force of the impact sent Lake's 2007 Chrysler over the wall of the bridge and into the Chesapeake Bay 40 feet below.
My eyes were closed, my mouth filled up with water really fast. I got one good screaming and I started to drown. I felt like my whole body was getting filled up with water, and I stopped shaking and said, I don't want to drown, I don't want to die.
The 22-year-old was able to reach down and unbuckle her seatbelt. She then pushed through her already broken car window and swam to the surface. Bleeding, Lake was able to reach a pile of rocks to wait for her rescuers.
I felt my whole left side not working. It was in a lot of pain, and I've managed to use my right side to shimmy my way up onto the rocks as much as I could. And then I heard somebody yell, "Stay there, help is coming."
Lake was flown to the Maryland Shock Trauma Center in Baltimore. Miraculously, her only injuries were a sprained ankle and some bumps and bruises.
I'm just blessed to be here, blessed to get a second chance at life.
Lake went on to say that with God, anybody can be their own Superman or Superwoman. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Truly, truly miraculous, Ephraim.
God bless her.
God bless her. God bless her.
Amazing.
Well, that's going to do it for the CBN News channel. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Have a terrific Tuesday, everybody.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.